And so let me introduce the first speaker, which is Dr. Mark Bracher, who is a professor of English and director of the Neurocognitive Research Program for the Advancement of the Humanities. His research focuses on how engagement with literature specifically and the humanities in general can promote the development of neurocognitive capabilities that are crucial for personal flourishing and social justice. His two most recent books are Literature and Social Justice, Protest Novels, Cognitive Politics, and Schema Criticism, and Educating for Cosmopolitanism, Lessons from Cognitive Science and Literature. His presentation today is drawn from his book in progress. What we're going to do is they get 15 minutes. Dan's big. He's going to tackle low and I'll tackle high if they go long. And we'll have some questions at the end, and at the end there'll be time for socializing afterwards. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Bracher.
Thank you, Doug. Advancing social justice through education has been an important goal for a lot of literature teachers and teachers in other humanities disciplines, at least since the 1960s. Unfortunately, through all that time, there's been very little evidence other than anecdotes that these efforts actually work. And there have also been some strong voices of insisting that not only do they not work, it's unethical to try to educate for social justice, because doing so inevitably involves inculcating values or imposing social norms. But there are certain empirical findings in social psychology and the practices of certain protest novels that suggest that social justice can be effectively advanced without indoctrination, but simply by training students to see other people more clearly. And both the empirical research and the protest novels suggest that the humanities in general and literature specifically provide unique resources for this sort of cognitive training. To begin with, both the research and the novels indicate that a major cause, and in a certain sense the root cause, I think we could say, of social injustice is faulty social cognition. That is, our failure to accurately, adequately perceive and judge other people. The novels and the research also agree on what the key faulty social cognitions are, or at least some of them. The first involves the failure to perceive the central role that external, uncontrollable causes play in determining people's life outcomes, their behaviors, and also their character traits. I call this the myth of self-determination. And the faulty cognitions that are produced include the perception, the belief that behavior, life outcomes, and character traits are determined by individuals themselves, with external forces playing little or no role, and that individuals therefore deserve the primary blame for their bad behavior and the primary credit for good behavior, and life outcomes and character traits as well. The basic schema of the myth of self-determination has this form. Life outcomes are assumed to be determined primarily by behavior or one's actions, and one's behavior or one's actions are assumed to be determined primarily by one's character, and one's character is somehow presumed to determine itself, be self-creating, self-causing. The myth of self-determination leads to social injustice by motivating and legitimating the further neglect and punishment of people who already have been victimized by forces beyond their control. And this includes poor people and criminals. It also leads to further celebrating and rewarding, admiring people who've already benefited from forces beyond their control, wealthy people, socially and professionally successful people. The second major faulty social cognition that produces social injustice is the failure to recognize one's solidarity with all the other humans. This includes practical solidarity, our interdependence, our dependence on others to meet our needs, emotional and neurological solidarity, for example, the inherent sympathy we have with anyone else who is suffering, and what I refer to as ontological solidarity, which simply means the common human needs, capabilities, and vulnerabilities that we share with all other humans. This failure in social cognition derives in large measure from the myth of social atomism, which holds that individuals are fundamentally different from, isolated from, competitive with, and antagonistic toward each other, and that individuals are motivated only by self-interest and have no real inherent sense of responsibility or impulse to help others who are suffering or in need. In the social atomist view, individuals are like so many billiard balls jockeying each other in a zero-sum game for the position of winner. Homo economicus is an example of this schema. The social atomism schema leads to social injustice by enabling certain categories of people to be seen as inhuman or subhuman, not like me, not a part of me, and therefore deserving only neglect or violence. Social psychological research and protest novels agree not only on these fundamental causes of social injustice, they also agree on how to remedy these injustices, namely by correcting the faulty social cognitions. And in addition, the research in the novels also suggests that correcting these faulty cognitions works to enhance social justice by reducing anger toward stigmatized people and increasing sympathy toward them. And this increased sympathy then is the immediate cause of more benevolent and just social policies, institutions, and structures. So the first correction that needs to be made involves replacing the self-determination schema with a schema that recognizes the role of chance or luck in all behaviors, life outcomes, and character traits. The moral luck schema enables one to see that both good and bad life outcomes, behavior, and character traits are ultimately caused largely by forces beyond one's control. When one perceives moral luck, one realizes that circumstances beyond the control of individuals play a major role in all of their successes, good behaviors and good character traits, and all their failures, bad behaviors and bad character traits. And this leads to the conclusion that wealthy people and good people should therefore be envied and expected to help others, not merely admired and further rewarded, and that poor people, criminals, and other bad actors should be sympathized with and helped, not merely blamed and further neglected or harmed. The second correction involves replacing the social atomism schema with a solidarity schema. The solidarity schema enables one to see the profound connectedness, similarity, and sameness of all others with oneself, which outweighs all differences. Instead of lottery balls slamming against each other in a zero-sum game, individuals are seen to be more like nodes in the net of the Hindu god Indra, in which each individual reflects and is connected with all other individuals. When we're equipped with a solidarity schema, we see that we are fundamentally just like people with objectionable behaviors, life outcomes, or character traits, and in fact that given different past or present circumstances, we could actually be any of those people. The religious saying, "There but for the grace of God go I," captures this realization very nicely. The social science also substantiates that. We also, operating with the schema of solidarity, recognize that we are implicated in the behaviors of bad actors, and that we therefore have a certain responsibility for them and to them. And finally, we recognize that we have an inherent need to help others who are in need. We recognize our own need to be needed, as it's been called. The question then becomes, how does one develop these corrective moral luck and solidarity schemas? And research findings in protest novels coincide here as well. They agree that recognizing moral luck and solidarity requires more than just an abstract understanding. It requires rather cognitive training, a training that enables people to perceive the role of moral luck and the presence of solidarity whenever they judge another person's behavior, life outcomes, or character. Three kinds of training are especially crucial here. First involves acquiring exemplars that incorporate moral luck and solidarity, and then practicing employing these exemplars as templates when we perceive other people. Second, practicing more adequate information processing routines, such as attention, expectation, information search, inference drawing, supposition, and so on, that apprehend moral luck and solidarity in real life and in real time. And then finally practicing metacognition, which allows one to monitor one's own information processing and correct it when it falls short. The humanities would appear to be privileged sites for this kind of training because in addition to providing propositional knowledge of moral luck and solidarity in some cases, they also provide exemplars. They engage students in practicing information processing routines that apprehend moral luck and solidarity. And they also offer, to different degrees, opportunities for students to practice metacognition regarding their social cognition. Protest novels do all of these things in various degrees. And other literature, history, philosophy, and religious texts also engage readers in these cognitive training activities. But teachers can do a lot with any of these texts to maximize students' engagement in these cognitive training activities. These steps include choosing texts and formulating reading protocols, discussion topics, research tasks, writing assignments, and exams that maximally engage students in these cognitive training processes. So that's the theory. But the question is, does such cognitive training actually work? Does it actually take place in literature and other humanities courses? The Social Cognition Research Group was formed about 5 years ago now to look into this question and others like it. Here's a list of folks who have contributed to this effort. We wanted to test three hypotheses. First, that humanities courses in general promote this kind of development. Second, that courses that use the pedagogical practices that I just mentioned would promote greater development. And finally, that the development of these schemas would result in increases in sympathy and benevolence towards stigmatized people. The first study, we administered a questionnaire at the beginning and again at the end of the semester to students in 4 humanities courses. They're listed here. We had one class that employed the enhanced pedagogical practices that I've described, and 3 classes that were taught in just a regular way. We first looked for changes in causal attributions regarding crime and poverty and other stigmatized life outcomes and behaviors and character traits. We found that at the end of the semester, students in all 4 courses showed an increase in recognition of the importance of external causes of crime. And the treatment group, the class with the enhanced pedagogical practices, which is indicated by the upper blue line here, showed greater increase, though this didn't reach statistical significance. We found a similar change in external attributions regarding poverty and also for bad behaviors and outcomes more generally. When we looked at changes in internal attributions, though, blaming the person for bad outcomes, we found a striking difference between the treatment group and the ordinary humanities courses. The treatment group showed a significant decrease in the importance of internal causes, which is what we wanted, what we were looking for. And this is a little confusing because these are reverse scored, and up means good, up means decrease, down means bad, increase. But that finding was also present for poverty and for bad outcomes generally. We also found increases in all classes of perceived similarity with others. And our conclusion was that this generally supports partial support for both hypotheses. We then did a second study where we tested for changes in preferred social action and in sympathy, which we didn't do in the first study. Here too, we found change toward less retributive social action. Each bar here is an individual subject. The bars above 0 are in the direction of reduced stigma. And changes in sympathy towards stigmatized others also increased at a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio. Reductions in the blaming of persons. I'll run through these quickly as my time is expiring. Also, increases in perceived similarity or sameness with others. We didn't have sufficient numbers to do any causal modeling, but correlations between these different scales, the changes, correlations between changes were pretty strong, so that what we find is support for some causal paths that have been outlined in other research. And generally, we think this shows that the hypothesis that humanities study can advance social justice by improving student social cognition is valid. And my time is up.